All this focus on rare earths, critical minerals, in part, it's because Donald Trump wants to generate a little bit of money in terms of, in return for all of that aid that's been given by the US. But in part, it's because Ukraine has been providing lots of information about potentially exciting minerals they've got under the ground. This is a mineral map of the country. And if we just zoom in here, in particular, there's one place, a deposit here, it's a former Soviet deposit going back to the 1970s, where they say there's a lot of rare earth. Now, rare earths are really important. They're in a suite of elements in the periodic table. They're used in magnets, they're used in military applications, so they matter a lot. And right now, the reason this really matters for the US, right now, most rare earth mining is dominated by China. So that's China in terms of the mining, dominating the global supply. When you think about refining those rare earths, so actually getting the rare earth out of the ground is pretty easy. Turning it into something you can use in a magnet or whatever it might be, that's really hard, and China also dominates that 90% of rare earth production. So you can see the attraction here. If the US feels they can get those rare earths in the Ukraine, well, maybe that might solve this. But here's the issue. When you look at how much in the way of rare earths there might be in Ukraine, it doesn't even scratch the surface. This is showing you global reserves of rare earths from China through to Brazil, India, Russia, Vietnam, and the US. The US actually has quite a bit of rare earths in the ground, but there's no Ukraine anywhere there, and that's partly because it doesn't really have much, even if you take into account that's resource in the ground, bearing in mind the idea that you can actually get it out of the ground economically. So maybe it's not rare earths, maybe it's other things like lithium. There is quite a big lithium deposit in the central Ukraine belt here. However, big by European standards, but if you put it against other kind of mega lithium reserve countries like Chile, like Australia, like Argentina, and even if you assume the best case scenario for Ukraine, it's still relatively small compared to the rest. It's not game-changing. And again, look at the US. The US has more lithium, considerably more lithium, than most other countries, including Ukraine. So it might well come back to, if the US wants to generate some extra money with these resources, it might come back to traditional stuff like coal. There's a lot of coal in Ukraine, not though as much as there is in America. There's lots of iron ore as well, again, ditto. Titanium, quite a big supply of titanium there as well, and uranium too. So maybe it's the traditional resources that could feed into this fund and might bring back some money, but it will be a long time before you actually see that coming into fruition.